Are you looking to get on the road to your dream career? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Mentor Select Podcast with your host, Derek Phillips. Always stay up to date on social media at Mentor Select and online at mentorselect.com. Here's your host of the Mentor Select Podcast, Derek Phillips.
Welcome to episode 54 of the Mentor Select Podcast. It's always a pleasure to have you join us. Make sure you like, subscribe, share the Mentor Select Podcast on whatever platform you're listening, because it's all about sharing that virtual mentorship from quality mentors that we interview every week on this podcast. So as many of you all know, I'm 7 weeks now into being a new dad. My daughter Legacy is growing bigger every day and just the absolute apple of my eye. She brings me so much joy. So I really love being a father. But even though I have a lot less free time, I'm still very passionate about mentorship. So I'm continuing to host the Mentor Select Podcast and make sure that I bring you all just quality mentorship every week. And actually next week will be the 1 year mark of the Mentor Select Podcast. So be sure to tune in for that. We have some special things to announce next week. And also, I published my first book, Poverty Powerball, in May. Turn adversity into your winning ticket. And the book is all about showing you how to really identify the value in those lessons you learn by going through hardships. We all experience hardships, and we all have valuable lessons that we learn from that we can use to really help us thrive throughout our lives. The book is available on Amazon and also my website, DerekPhillips.com. Today is very exciting because I have Jason O. Harris, who is a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force Reserves. Jason is a highly decorated combat pilot. He is an instructor at the United States Air Force Academy and an American Airlines International First Officer. So as you can see, Jason has a very long, impressive resume, but today he's going to talk to us about his journey growing up in Oakland, California, being raised by a single mother, and just how he was able to defy the odds and be one of the less than 3% of Black pilots in the United States Air Force and commercial pilots. Now Jason shares his experiences being a combat pilot and a commercial pilot, and travels around teaching organizations how to, what he calls the no-fail trust, which empowers organizations to trust their people like their business depends on it. So Jason delivers keynotes, workshops, and also does consulting. He just does it all. So let's get to the interview and learn Jason's secrets to success. All right. We have Jason Harris today on what I like to call the Poverty Powerball Winner's Circle. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, thanks so much, Derek. I appreciate you for having me on, man. It's an honor and I'm humbled.
Great. We're honored to have you. So, Jason, really the whole premise for this show is to help kids who are growing up in potentially tough situations, maybe poverty, and they feel that they don't really have those positive influences around them. They don't see successful people in their neighborhoods. So I just kind of want to give them that virtual mentorship and let them know that there are people out there who've overcame those same circumstances and achieve success. So you're certainly one of those people, Jason, and we look forward to hearing your story.
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate that. I'm excited to share, and hopefully I can share something, man, that motivates, inspires, and encourages another young person like yourself, like myself, to figure out how to, as an outcast said, to get up and get out and get something.
Definitely. Love it. So, Jason, what's your profession?
So a couple of things that I do. So my primary job is I'm a pilot, first officer for American Airlines. I used to fly the Boeing 767 and 757 internationally, primarily in the European theater. So places like Paris, London, Manchester, Madrid, you name it. I've done a lot of those places by way of being a Boeing 767 and 757 pilot. Currently, I fly the Airbus A319, 320, and 321. Anything between traveling from LAX to JFK or traveling down to Mexico, Canada, Central South America destinations, as well as a lot of domestic operations on that fleet of aircraft for American Airlines.
Wow.
The other profession that I have is I'm also an officer in the United States Air Force Reserve, a lieutenant colonel. My past jobs in the Air Force, I've flown C-130s as a cargo air mobility pilot, aircraft commander. I've done 4 combat deployments there. I also spent 4 years as a special operations pilot, flying in different places, doing different cool, unique missions, flying small fixed-wing aircraft, or sometimes what are known as STOL, short takeoff and landing aircraft.
Okay.
I did 7 deployments while in special operations. After that, I've taught at the Air Force Academy, done some other jobs as an Air Force reservist, and currently I serve as a Lieutenant Colonel Air Force Reservist at U.S. Northern Command and NORAD here at Peterson Air Force Base, helping support the Joint Logistics Operations as a mobility planner and an action officer there at the command.
Wow, it's quite the extensive, impressive resume. Cool. I have to say, you're the first Black pilot that I've been able to interview or that I know personally. So I'm excited to hear more about your story. Certainly. So where did it all begin for you, Jason? Where'd you grow up?
Well, so I grew up in Oakland, California, man. And those who are familiar with Oakland, old school Oakland, I grew up on 61st and East 14th. Growing up there, my grandfather, he served in the Korean War and then the Vietnam War. And at the end of Vietnam, the family, they all moved to Oakland. And so that's where I was born at, in Oakland, California.
Okay.
I lived there until 3rd grade. And my mom ended up enlisting in the Army to get us out of Oakland because of the craziness that was happening around us.
Wow. Okay. Tell us about some of that craziness growing up in Oakland.
So my mother is the second of her mother's 6 children. And interestingly enough, I happen to be my mother's second of her 6 children.
Okay.
Funny enough, my mother has 5 boys and 1 girl, and my grandmother has 5 boys and 1 girl. That said, the craziness, a lot of it was I was surrounded by my uncles that were in and out of prison, my uncles that were selling drugs, watching other people around me selling drugs, watching kind of some gang violence and different things like that as I grew up there in Oakland. I can remember seeing the crack epidemic kind of just taking hold of the Bay Area, watching guys at my neighborhood park, Rainbow Park, selling drugs, spreading crack rocks out on the ground on the basketball court and divvying the crack rocks up, things like that.
Yeah.
To include, being in a crack house with some of my uncles at the age of 7.
Wow.
So those are some of the experiences that I had growing up in Oakland, California. But all my experiences weren't bad. I've had the people talk about, the Black Panther Party. There's different things that people talk about with regards to Huey Newton and some of the other major players in the Black Panther Party movement. Mm-hmm. Well, the interesting thing is that my grandmother's house was literally right across the street from their original headquarters there in East Oakland.
Oh, wow.
Some of the Black Panther Party, such as Huey Newton and some of the other greats there, Stokely Carmichael and some of those guys, they used to sit on my grandmother's porch, man, and have conversations with my grandmother. And then for me, like I said, some of the other good things that I got to experience as a result of Oakland, that the free lunch program that the Black Panther Party created, interestingly enough, man, growing up, I got to benefit from that free lunch program at my neighborhood rec center, Rainbow Park, as I was a kid growing up in Oakland, California.
Wow. That's cool. Can't too many people say that. Definitely. I remember. Cool. So as far as with all of definitely the negative influences and circumstances you're put in, what kept you out of trouble during those times?
Well, I can't say that I always stayed out of trouble. I found myself in various types of trouble as I was growing up. And so, I segment my life into different parts of my life growing up. There's the pieces of when I would go back to visit Oakland after we moved away.
Okay.
There's the pieces when I would go back to visit Oakland while I was in college at the Air Force Academy. There's middle school where I got into trouble there and when my mom moved us away to Texas. And then there was just growing up in Oakland, with a whole bunch of cousins. And so,
yeah,
for me, there was the cool thing was that my grandfather, he was no college, he wasn't college educated, but he was a smart man. Maybe he took some college classes, I don't think so, but he was a brilliant man, and he would always work with my siblings and I on math.
Okay.
And so because of that, he would work with us on math. He would work with us on our vocabulary. he worked with us on just basic things in terms of the foundation for education. And because of that, education was never a huge problem for my siblings and I, as well as for different family members. But also as a result of that, we would get done with our work, or at least I would get done with my work ahead of my other classmates a lot of times. And with that came boredom. With boredom come, the opportunity to get in trouble. And so I would mess with classmates. I would mess with teachers, you name it, just something to keep me occupied. And so interestingly enough, as I talk with my mom, retrospectively, the school system, they actually wanted to label me and medically diagnose me as being ADHD or ADD or whatever the terminology was at the time.
Right.
And my mother just said, no, he's just a kid who's got a lot of energy. And so she didn't allow them to do that, and so that was very helpful and fortunate for me. Couple of things that, as I'm talking, man, just the question sparks so much in my mind, especially as we're talking to young people.
Yeah.
When I think I was still in elementary school. No, I believe by this point, I was probably in middle schoolish, sometime frame like that. But at one point, man, I got sent to alternative school, not once, but twice. I got sent once in the 6th grade and once in the 7th grade. There's a great story about the vice principal that sent me to alternative school. And then another thing was I got my mom and my stepdad at the time, I got us kicked off of base because of stuff that I did. So like when you're living on a military base,
that's a big deal.
Yeah, you do something crazy and the military police, they show up and then now they're kicking you off base. And so literally I got my family because of my actions and my behavior. I got us kicked off base, man. And so there was a lot of trouble that I had found myself in at different phases of my life, And then, just flashing forward, I remember it was brought back to my remembrance a couple of months ago. There was one time where I went back to Oakland on a vacation. I think it was a Thanksgiving break one year. While I was attending the Air Force Academy, I was hanging out with one of my cousins. And I don't know exactly what transpired that day and how we ended up at this point in time, but we were literally right around the corner from my grandmother's house. The sun had already set. It was dark. And here we are at their neighborhood store that we always go to. And somehow we were surrounded by about 6 to 8 young people, younger than me. I was in college, hanging out with a younger cousin, what he thought was his friends. Yeah. But turns out they weren't really his friends. I knew that 2 of them had weapons on them. One of them happened to be a weapon that my cousin had in his possession at one point in time, a MAC-10 Uzi. Another one, to my understanding, had a pistol on him. And they all had on gloves. And all I could think, man, was I've made it all the way out of Oakland, made it all the way to the Air Force Academy in Colorado.
Right.
I'm halfway done with college at the United States Air Force Academy, and I'm about to lose my life because I came back to Oakland and decided to hang out with my cousin.
Wow.
Of all people, like if I think I'm going to lose my life, like I don't want to feel like I'm going to lose my life with my cousin. I get shot because he did something stupid and something ignorant.
Right.
And literally, that is one of those thoughts that comes to my mind, man, as I reflect back on crazy stuff that happened to me as a child growing up in Oakland, California, man.
Right. Yeah, I totally can relate to that. I have so many experiences where things could have just went completely a different way, and instead of to change the trajectory of my life, just in just that split second decision or split instance. So it sounds like that's certainly what you're describing.
Yeah, and real quick, Derek, you asked that question, kind of how did I stay out of trouble? I kind of told you that I didn't necessarily stay out of trouble, but the other thing I kind of want to add, man, for the purposes of anyone who might be listening to this, who might just grab some nugget of knowledge or wisdom, for me, there was a couple of things that really helped me when I made the decision in my mind that I wanted to get out of that environment. I wanted to succeed, and I didn't want to find myself dead or in prison or strung out on drugs. Okay. I told you in 3rd grade, we moved from Oakland to Texas.
Okay.
And around about 8th grade, man, I found myself literally about to make the decision to sell dope, to sell some drugs, not because I had to, but because it just seemed cool. It just seemed like it would be cool to have my own money. It seemed like it'd be cool me to buy the same shoes and clothes that everybody else was wearing. Well,
right.
I didn't do it. It was fortunate. And part of the reason why I didn't do it was because I connected with a mentor. He's still in my life in a distant way now. I wish he was closer. But that said, this gentleman made an offer to me, and he made an offer to a whole bunch of other people that were in my school. And I happened to be one of the only ones that took him up on that offer.
Okay.
And he was an older Black gentleman, Mr. Foster, and he offered for me to come out and hang out with him. He used to coach athletes. And then more importantly, the thing that really stuck was he gave me an offer to learn how to ride horses.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? I was like, Black folks, man, I know nothing about horses. I didn't know we could ride horses, bro. Like, what?
Right.
And I tell people to this day, man, and some people, they find it strange because it's just not normal, but horses is one of those things, if not the thing, that saved my life.
Wow.
You know, because every weekend I go out and be with those horses. Every weekend I go out and help people with their horses, teach people how to ride horses, me learning how to ride them myself and learn how to take care of horses, figuring out what it's like to go to rodeos. That was one of those things that when I got to 8th grade and really high school, that made the difference in terms of literally saving my life, saving me from getting killed, saving me from selling drugs and anything else. You know, one of my homeboys I ran real hard with in 8th grade. I ended up finding out later, man, he ended up he's in jail still for life. He ended up breaking into the apartment of some Army soldier there near Fort Hood. Wow. And the guy woke up and he ended up shooting this guy and killing him. You know, and I just thought, man, even now I sometimes stop and just think about what could have been had I continued to hang out with this cat and trying to be cool and trying to just be part of that crew, if you would.
Right.
And I'm thankful that I had something to help me, to sustain me, such as horses and Mr. Foster, to give me an opportunity to escape the craziness that I was seeing. Even after I left Oakland in Texas, there was still craziness where I was at. So the craziness is anywhere that we're at, man. We just got to decide what we're willing to do and what we want to do to get us out of that. And a lot of that is decisions that we have to make ourselves to help us propel ourselves towards our destiny.
So, yeah, that's a great example in terms of how once people do make it out, as far as being mentors, paying it forward, like Mr. Foster. So what do you think it was about you inside that made you take him up on that offer? Was it just something that you found appealing, or you just knew that you needed to do something different than what you were doing?
Man, I think it was a little bit of both, man. I mean, honestly, it was kind of like, I knew my family was poor, man. And so I knew nobody in my family had money to pay for college. And then the examples that I had saw of people that were successful, whether they be in my church or on TV or whatever, it always seemed to go back towards education. Okay. And because of that, you know, it's either education or a career, one or the other, or a combination thereof. And because of that, I says, well, I got to do my part. I don't know of any jobs that I want to do right out of high school that would give me what I wanted in terms of what success looked like in my mind at the time.
Okay.
So the only clear path to that was education. And the only clear path to that was taking advantage of opportunities, be around people who could open my eyes to other opportunities. So Mr. Foster having that conversation with me and opening up his heart and his time was just one other opportunity for me to see something and take an opportunity to determine if that was what I wanted to pursue. Okay. So it was something in me, but it was also something that was offered to me that made me wonder and made me think about what if and what are the possibilities.
Right.
And so it was almost as clear as just changing who I was going to hang around with. I could hang around with the knuckleheads that was selling dope, smoking dope, and doing all kind of crazy nonsense. Or I could hang around with this other dude who actually had a pocket full of money. He was balling out of control, but for different reasons, right? Legally. And who put me around other people who were successful, other people who had been through life, lived life, and who could offer me some wise words of wisdom. And for me, that was the thing that grabbed my attention, man. That was the thing that made me decide that I wanted to pursue whatever it was that Mr. Foster had and see, at least try and see what it was about.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Now, you mentioned earlier about a principal that was influential in your life. Tell us more about her.
Yeah, man. So when I was in sixth grade, I went to the middle school that was on the base
Okay.
on Fort Hood and Smith Middle School. And so the vice principal, Mrs. Minerva Trujillo, I'll never forget her because I spent so much time in her office. I think first 9 weeks of school, man, like the first 9 weeks of school or whatever it was, I probably went to her office more than 20 different times.
Wow.
So we got to know each other real well. And, I go to her office, she dished out the punishment, and it'd be what it was, right? So she sent me to alternative school, like I said, once in the sixth grade and another time in the seventh grade, man. But there was this one time that I went into her office, and I don't remember what it was that sparked the conversation or what made her show me this picture. Well, she showed me this picture, man, and it was of her son, Paul. And to this day, I'll never forget the construct of that picture and what that picture said and what it meant to me. It was her son, Paul, who was at the Air Force Academy, sitting at his bed desk unit in his formal dress uniform.
Okay.
And I just remember seeing that picture, man, and her son looked like the picture of success, and then she went on to tell me, hey, he's going to the Air Force Academy. He's going to go and fly airplanes and he's going to be an officer and this and that. And there was just something about that picture, man. And I don't know why to this day she showed me that picture. Maybe she saw something in me amidst all the trouble that I was getting into and all the punishments that she dished out to me. But when she showed me that picture, it stuck in my mind and I've never forgotten it. And so, fast forward, I ended up going to the Air Force Academy, didn't go there to fly airplanes, but turns out I got the opportunity to fly airplanes. I ended up flying airplanes. And I remember I graduated the Air Force Academy in 2001. In 2005, I was going back through aircraft commander upgrade for C-130s. And I'm walking on the base or whatever in my flight suit, and I see this other gentleman in a flight suit. Glance over at the name tag, and it said Trujillo. And immediately, I just stopped. And I turned around and I'm like, "Hey, man, I am so sorry, man. Is your mom a principal?" He kind of looked at me weird. He's like, "Well, yeah." I said, "Is your mom Miss Trujillo?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Look, dude, let me explain to you.
You're why I'm here.
What you mean to me and what your mom is and what she means to me." I'm sure I freaked him out, man. But literally, I was like, "Yo, okay, here's the deal." But literally, I just ran it down to this cat, man, and let him know, the picture that his mom showed, the fact that he went to the Air Force Academy, I went to the Air Force Academy, and then with the craziest thing, he was a C-130 pilot, and I became a C-130 pilot. What of that happening, man?
Wow.
And so for me, I think about that often, man. And when I think about that, I go, there's two things. I say, what is the photo in your mind that is going to carry you towards your destiny? And then what is the photo that you're painting for someone else to look at you? Right. I look at you, your story, man, what you've done and what you're doing now and how you're trying to motivate and inspire and encourage young people, right? You're painting this picture for them.
Right.
For all of us that are out here doing things, what is the picture that we're painting for these young people to give them something to strive for? Yeah. We're far from perfect, but we paint a picture that someone's going to want to be like us no matter what. And so we need to be mindful of that picture that we're painting for these young folks coming behind us.
I totally agree. It's all about, we have that choice that we can either paint a positive picture or a negative picture. We want to influence people positively or negatively. So I totally agree. That's an awesome story too, especially you ran into him.
Oh man, it was crazy. I'm sure I totally freaked that dude out, man.
That is awesome. All right. So for those people viewing not familiar with the Air Force Academy, it's definitely a very prestigious school, hard to get into. So what was the process in terms of you getting into the Air Force Academy? Were you good academically in high school?
So academically, I was a pretty solid performer when it came to academics in high school. And the roadblock that I ran into, interestingly enough, was my test scores.
Okay.
So I remember my number one college choice out of high school, I wanted to go to Texas A&M so bad, man. Mm-hmm. We would go to their games as I was in junior ROTC in high school, and we would go to Aggie for a day every year. And I wanted nothing more than to go to Texas A&M, be an Aggie, become a senior, wear the boots, the Spurs. Like that was the thing to do for me.
Yeah.
Well, they turned me down. Like literally, I didn't get accepted to Texas A&M, and it kind of broke my heart a little bit. And I felt like maybe I wasn't good enough or I wasn't worthy. Well, at the same time as I was applying for colleges, I applied to the Air Force Academy. I applied to West Point, U.S. Military Academy at West Point. I applied to the U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis, and I applied to the U.S. Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut.
Okay.
Well, a couple other schools, University of Southern Cal. So I ended up getting accepted to University of Southern Cal, and I got an Army ROTC scholarship, and that was for 3 years.
Okay.
Well, I got excited because I had an auntie that lived in Inglewood, and then I was told, like, hey, man, by the way, you got to be able to pay that first year of college, and then the ROTC scholarship kicks in for 3 years. And I was like, whoa, wait. I couldn't comprehend paying. Like it just, I wanted to go to college, but I didn't know that this college thing, you had to like, you ready to pay upfront cash money. So, so that one was off the table. I was like, well, I can't go to USC because I don't know how to pay for it. And my mom didn't have any money and none of my family has money. So that was off the table.
Yeah.
Well, so then I ended up getting accepted to the Air Force Academy, but not directly in.
Okay.
I was accepted to the Air Force Academy's prep school. I was also accepted to West Point's prep school, Naval Academy's prep school, and the Coast Guard Academy's prep school. But now it was kind of one of those things. I was like, wait a minute, that's an extra year of college, and I don't know. So I went to another person who was very influential in my life at the time, which was my high school guidance counselor, Mrs. Marsha Brown. And I remember going into Mrs. Brown. I says, ma'am, I don't know what to do. Like, this is an extra year school. That means 5 years. And I'm just kind of stuck and I'm kind of confused. And she says, honey, let me tell you something. She said, all your other classmates out here that got college scholarships or got whatever, going to college and want to be engineers, it's going to take them 5 years. But here's the difference, baby. She says, let me tell you something. She's an older Southern Caucasian woman. She said, let me tell you something, honey. She says, the beauty of what you got in your hands, they're going to pay you for all 5 years, and you're going to have a guaranteed job when you graduate. They're not.
Right.
I said, okay, well, so this is a good deal. She goes, oh, baby, it's the best deal you're going to find on the market. Yeah. So I took it, man. But in terms of the challenges to get there, man, to get into the Air Force Academy or any of our military service academies, you got to perform academically, you got to be physically fit, and you got to be a well-rounded person. We at the Air Force Academy, other service academies, we're not so much as looking for the number one academic person. We're not looking for the number one athlete. What we're looking for is the best all-around person that will be an officer and a leader of character. Yeah. And so there's a lot of different things that happen in that process, from the letters of recommendation, the fitness test, the academics, things like that. Well, back to getting accepted to the prep school, the reason why I ended up going to prep school was because academically I was very sound for my grades and my grade point average, my class ranking, being in the top 5% of my graduating high school class of more than 500 students. Wow. But what I needed to do was I needed to shore up my test scores for the SAT and the ACT. So I go into the prep school, they basically prepared me to be able to take the SAT and ACT every single time it happened that entire year. I took that test, both of us, I don't know how many times, bro. But let me explain this to you, man. Here's the kicker. The first time I took the SAT, and I know the scores have changed here and there along the way, but back in, I sound really old when I say this, but back in my day, I had 1,600 points. To get over 1,300 points was a big freaking deal, right? Right. Well, the first time I ever took the SAT in high school, I don't even think I broke 900 on my score. Like my score. That's crazy, right? Yeah. Like literally, I didn't break 900 on my score the first time I took the SAT. Well, fast forward to the end of my prep school year, when it was all done and said, I ended up scoring like over 1,300 on the SAT. Wow. I ended up scoring really high on the ACT, and I was able to get my appointment to go into the Air Force Academy. So it wasn't an easy journey, man. It was this windy, rocky journey to get there. But I made certain that no matter what, I would not quit along that journey.
Wow. Yeah, sounds like that prep paid off, definitely. And it's cool how your counselor helped you look at it as more of an advantage than like, oh, wow, they got to do the extra year. So,
Absolutely, man.
speaking of advantages, so just with your childhood, all the adversity you had to overcome, how has those lessons you learned served you in your career?
Oh man, there's so many ways that it serves me that are intangible that I don't even know how to comprehend and articulate
Yeah.
uh, in an audible manner.
Hmm.
What I do know is that, you know, growing up poor, growing up in Oakland, learning how to be streetwise, learning how to maneuver and navigate that environment
Yep.
taught me a lot about perseverance, right?
Yeah.
It taught me about who you surround yourself with. It taught me about what family should mean to you and who they are. It taught me different things about how to be able to brush my shoulders off and not get stressed about certain situations.
Right.
And to be able to look at things with a different perspective. A lot of times people throw around the term diversity, and they think diversity is all about our skin color or male, female, whatever. Some of the
Yeah.
big four
Right.
items.
The
Really,
physical things. Yeah.
exactly. But it's not the physical things all the time, man. It's the things that are up here.
Right.
And a lot of us that come from the inner city, a lot of us that come from being poor, broken, destitute, we have a diversity of thought that is unlike anyone else.
Mm.
We figure out how to make the impossible possible because we had to.
Right.
Like that's, you know what I'm saying? Like we didn't, like in college, I didn't have a home to go back to.
Mm-hmm.
It was do or die.
Exactly.
So I had to put everything into it, right?
Yeah.
Growing up, I didn't have family to pay for college. I didn't have anybody I don't think anybody in my family at the time probably made more than $35,000.
Wow.
Right? So I didn't know these other things, but I knew what I wanted. And that environment was what drove me to always push, to want more, to do more, and to be more. And even now, there are lessons that I learned growing up in that environment that are still applicable in terms of how I do my job. Being flexible, being able to think outside the box, being able to not be driven towards groupthink, being able to look at a situation and say, okay, fine, if I can't go through the door, then I'm gonna figure out how to go over the door, under the door, around the door, or kick the door in, whatever it is. And all of that is as a result of how I was raised, a result of growing up in that impoverished environment, growing up in an environment where you see things that it's almost like, literally, you and I being alive technically is an impossibility. Yeah. Statistically speaking, we aren't supposed to be doing what we do.
Right.
But because of who we are and because of the environments that we grew up in, we actually learn survival skills. We learn skills that you can't teach in a school. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I've been to survival training twice. The basic one and the advanced one.
Wow.
But neither of those schools could teach me what I learned surviving the streets of Oakland.
Wow. Yeah, you certainly, wow, the way you verbalize just the value of all those lessons, I couldn't agree more. Now, I know that you've flown over 2,000 combat hours?
Yeah.
Over 2,000, yeah. Like ties back into, I'm sure that you apply some of those lessons you learned growing up in the hood, per se. They apply, I call that urban combat, and you apply into the real combat field, military combat field as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. So I was checking out your website, and I see that you have so your companies are called High Flight Solutions, as far as where you're speaking.
Yes.
Okay, and so can you tell us more about what does no fail culture mean?
So basically, no fail trust, man. When I talk about no fail trust, like a lot of us, we have trust in our organizations. We have trust within our teams, things of that nature. But when you want to take trust from basic trust to a whole nother level, I equate that to combat, whether it's urban combat, like you just mentioned, or actual flying combat, whether it's flying overhead or you're actually on the ground. When your life is on the line, you need to have the ability to trust that person to know that they're not going to fail. And let me make this real clear. A lot of people think that when I say that or when I talk about flying that I never fail. No, I fail all the time.
Gotcha.
The difference is when do I fail and how do I fail, right? So when I talk that no fail trust mindset, the idea is that, if I'm flying in on a low level, going in to pick up America's finest, you figure out in your mind who that is, right? Just call him Captain America. Captain America calls and says, I need you to be here at this time.
Yeah.
Well, my objective is to be there to pick that person up plus or minus 30 seconds. I'm going to come in at 50 to 200 feet low level off the ground. That person is expecting me to be there to save their life plus or minus 30 seconds.
Wow.
When I got guys on the ground and they're getting shot at and they're about to get overran and they've already expended all of their ammunition, all of their hand grenades, all of their weapons, and my team and our airplane has the life-saving speedball bag, a 50-pound bag of ammunition, hand grenades, and whatever they need, resources to get out of that situation, we can't fail, right? Because their lives are on the line. Their lives are hanging in the balance.
Yeah, stakes are high, highest.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like that is no fail trust, man. And so if we fail, then we mess up. But here's a kicker. On the flip side of that, in the day-to-day life, the day-to-day flying, just like our things that we're doing on a daily basis, I get to go out and practice meeting my timing objective.
Okay.
And if I'm over by, if I'm short by 45 seconds or over by 45 seconds, then my crew and I, or an instructor, myself, or whoever, we get to debrief and we get to have that conversation and say, hey man, what did you do wrong? What caused you to mess up? What can you do better the next time? Because by the way, when you get in combat, you can't fail. That landing, we're going to do some crazy landing stuff. We're going to go and practice landing on 2-lane highways. We're going to practice landing on dry lake beds. We're going to practice landing on beaches, whatever it is, man, landing on a hillside, on a like right at the edge of a mountain, whatever it is, we're going to practice. And I guarantee you, we are going to screw it up in practice.
Yeah.
But when it comes to combat, when it comes to putting boots on target, getting our guys out of the combat environment, you can't fail, right?
Wow.
That's no fail trust, man. And it applies in our daily lives, it applies in our businesses.
Right.
If those that are listening that have businesses, if you think that this doesn't matter because you're not getting shot and you're not in combat,
you're wrong.
Let me enlighten you and tell you that every day is like combat. If the bottom line at your organization, what company did you say you work for, dear?
Hewlett Packard.
And Hewlett Packard, right? If the bottom line starts dwindling, and all of a sudden Hewlett Packard decides that they need to run a layoff, and now people can't pay their bills, there is going to be no senior prom for their daughter, right? They can't put food on the table.
Yeah.
That's life and death situations.
Right.
So you fail from combat, this actual flying combat that I've experienced, to combat on a daily basis in our organizations, right?
Right.
And the idea is that we need to be able to cultivate an environment that's built on trust. Trust that we know when it counts, our people will not fail.
Wow. Love it. Love it. Awesome. Well, Jason, as we get ready to wrap up this interview, what would be some of your parting advice to the viewers, especially those growing up in environments like you grew up, I grew up in poverty?
Man, I would just say, man, to number one, never give up, right? And a lot of the stuff that I have to say, it's not meant to be cliche or anything like that. It's actually meant to be as real as I possibly can.
Right.
Don't give up. Don't let anybody talk you out of occupying your destiny, right? Like if somebody wants to clown you because you're too smart, if somebody wants to clown you because of how you talk, if somebody wants to clown you because of how you dress, bump all that nonsense. They don't matter. At the end of the day, what matters is who you are and who you are destined to be and what you're willing to do to fulfill and occupy your destiny.
Right.
To include, don't let family members knock you off your post. Don't let them put you in a position where you fail. Don't let family members put you in a position to where you don't chase your dreams, goals, destiny, right? And every day it's a fight. The other thing that I like to tell people, man, is that like life wasn't always rosy. I wasn't supposed to make it out of the Air Force Academy. I had a federal investigation. I was told that I was the worst cadet to go through the Air Force Academy. I got in some trouble there. And I didn't think I was going to graduate.
Wow.
And it was a very, very challenging time, just similar to challenging growing up in Oakland, coming out of poverty, things like that. But more importantly, what I like to tell people, man, is no matter how bad your life sucks, I promise you, someone wishes that their life sucked as good as yours.
Right.
Because somebody's always got it worse than you have. And you can never let the inner voices tell you that you can't do it anymore, that you can't take another step. Because you can always take one more step. You can always go another day, and you can always make it through another day to figure out what else it takes to succeed. Because just because you're poor, broken, destitute now, don't mean you got to stay that way.
Right.
There is opportunity out here. My way was college and the military. Derek, your way was the military, right? But there's other opportunities that you can do. If you don't have the money to go to college, that's cool. If you don't want to go to college, that's cool. Yeah. Go look at how much firefighters get paid. Go look at other opportunities for you to get a job and succeed, and figure out how to change your situation and your circumstances. And don't let them define you. You, as the person, get to define who you are and who the world will see you as.
Wow. Guess you can drop the mic after that one. That's some golden advice there.
I'm passionate about it. Thank you.
Wow, loaded. So I know that you do a lot of mentoring and paying it forward, and you're just an overall servant leader. I love that. So how can viewers get in contact with you if they want to know more about you? Or just...
And you can hit up my website, which is jasonoharris.com. You can hit me up at jasonoharris.com. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn and on Instagram. On Instagram, I'm Jet Pilot Jace there on Instagram. So awesome. Anybody want to hit me up, have a conversation, ask me some questions, feel free. Always willing to drop a little bit of knowledge and just share a little piece of who I am, what I am, and how I came to be to help somebody else become who they are destined to be.
Wow, that's great. And we greatly appreciate it, Jason. I've learned a lot during this interview with some great tips and guidance. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
That was a fantastic interview with Jason O. Harris. I know that you all learned a lot from that interview, and just so many gems that Jason shared with us that I hope you can apply to your lives starting today. Why wait? Just do it. Certainly, let's let Jason know what resonated with you about this interview. So reach out to him. His website is jasonoharris.com. And I also include all his contact information in the email. He's available on LinkedIn as well under Jason O. Harris. At Facebook. Reach out to him. Let him know, hey, I really appreciate what you did by taking time out of your busy day to share your story and inspire the listeners. We can't thank Jason enough. Well, I'll be back next week with another interview and actually like some special announcements because it'll be the 1 year anniversary for the Mentor Select podcast. So be sure to tune in to that. And don't forget to pick up my book, Poverty Powerball. It's available on Amazon and also my website, DerrickPhillips.com. Well, I'll be back next week.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Mentor Select podcast, helping you identify and follow your passions. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit mentorselect.com and Mentor Select on social media. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review. We'll catch you next time.